HB, and we are live in Lake Tahoe at the American Century Championship, and we are very pleased to have on the broadcast right now Mr. Cliff Illig. He is a partner with the Cerner Corporation and Sporting Kansas City as one of the owners of that group. He has done so many things, and his colleagues have done so many things in and around Kansas City. They are too numerous to mention at this point, but among the more high-profile things, creating all the jobs with Cerner, of course, Sporting Kansas City's success, and real estate and golf developments at Rockwood and the National. Mr. Illig, how are you, sir? Everything good?
Great, Kevin. How are you doing?
It is great to see you. You are not golfing at all, right? You have a hand injury, is that right?
Nursing a little bit of the left hand, so when I'm on, I'm on. When I'm off, it's way left.
Okay, but you love to play the game and you love being around it.
It's great being out here.
Cerner isn't the title sponsor, obviously, of the event. That's American Century, but I know that you know those folks very, very well. There is an amazing Kansas City feel to this event. How many people would you say are here in Kansas City?
Hundreds. Just walking around out on the course, walking around the hotel, the club, and just see dozens of people. It's a big deal. They all seem to come out here enjoy the weather. I'm a little confused as to how you and Danny can split up
Danny's at the Midwest Classic, and he'll be with us again later. So you won't be hearing voices in your head. It's just me and you here. I should have told you that.
That's all right.
That's the way we do it from this end. We'll just handle it here from this end. So, man, things are going really well for you, huh? I mean, Sporting is on fire right now, and you got the All-Star game coming up in a couple of weeks, which is very, very exciting. Do you, and I've watched a game or two with you, I've been to a game or two in your presence, you take this very seriously. When you first started in the soccer venture, were you a soccer fan, or have you grown into soccer?
I think I've always been a sports fan. I've always been a fan of
she's a Renaissance woman, if you will. So very much
wherever it is in the world, so it's hard to
really her knowledge about horse racing in general.
Prior to 2006 when we got into this, but we really got into it because Lamar Hunt
how cute she is, bubbly, and fun to be around, and overall
strongly that Kansas City's a major league city because we're a major league sports franchise. The lines are most of the rest of the country, and that if we couldn't find a local owner for them to win shirts, that ran the risk of keeping it. And that was enough to motivate me and I to get a real close look at it. And obviously we've done what we've done, and we've become big soccer fans since then. Not only soccer fans, not only fans of the game, fans of all the things that are behind the game.
There you go, TJ. Okay, you judge a man in pants, I judge a man in slacks.
At that level now. Just watch what Peter does with the guys, getting to know the guys. I mean, it's just involved as an owner in sports gives you a chance just to get close to something that has a lot of really interesting
Any reaction from the SEC?
You guys obviously are winners. A lot of people that own sports franchises are winners, and then they get in sports and it becomes difficult because not everybody can win. Has some of the success you've had, and I think for me the number one thing is the impact that you've had on sports fans in Kansas City, the thousands and thousands of people you see wearing sporting gear around town. I would never guess it would become this popular. Has it surprised even you?
Absolutely. I think the big brand change we went through a couple, 3 years ago was a big move for us. I think it was a big move for the city.
Was it scary?
Yeah, there was a lot of disagreement among our group as to exactly which way to go with that. And Rob Heineman led the team that kind of put that direction together, and up until the very end, it was nip and tuck as to whether we could get everybody to agree. And I'm not sure everybody jumped on full board because it was just an odd thing. I mean, you look around our league, you've got the kind of the standard names like the like the Rapids, and then you got the odd names like the Fire, and then you've got the European stuff, whether it's FC Dallas or Toronto FC or whatever it is. And we, with the way we've gone through the stadium design and everything, we've wherever possible, we've kind of leaned towards what has really made the game very popular overseas. And so the Sporting KC label was an extension of that thought.
What's the ceiling on this team?
Ultimately, it gets around to, and Neil and I are very forceful about this. You can not like something, but you better be able to propose something else. So you can be against something, but you got to be for something.
Right.
That's just the way we operate in business and everything else. So there's not a lot of unproductive debate about I just don't like it.
Right.
If you don't like it, come up with something better, and nobody can come up with anything better. And obviously, it's worked pretty well.
Well, you're talking to to exactly that guy, because I didn't understand it when it first happened, and I didn't like it, but I didn't have a better idea. I didn't know exactly what should be done. I did like your choice of where you built the stadium, as opposed to things that may have been proposed before that, just because all the traffic that was already built in there and the success that area had. So, we saw a lot of these decisions, and I think as we look back now, it really appears to be I'm sure you guys have had failures and things that you thought were going to work that didn't, that surprised you in that way, but it looks like a series of big decisions have really paid off. That must be very fulfilling.
Yeah, it's a very good group of people that are involved. I think as an ownership team, as an executive team, as a management team, as the team behind the scenes, as the team that produces the games out at the stadium, and obviously the team in the field, I think we all kind of understand that we each have a role to play, and we need to be respectful of the various roles. And it's been amazing to me how well it has all gelled. And yeah, so the results very, very impressive. I sit there and look at the full stadium, and you pinch yourself a little bit and say, boy, it did work.
Yeah.
We thought about a lot of this stuff, and when we put the stadium design together, we thought about all the individual areas. We designed very carefully to be attractive to whoever the fan group or whatever it was that was going to be taking advantage. But we could never predict those when you put it all together and filled it up what it was going to be like. And so yeah, that's been quite surprising. I think we get a lot of credit, probably not entirely justified for what we did with the stadium building itself. We put a lot of time into the fan experience design, but ultimately it's those fans that sit in the north end and wrap around the side that generate the energy, which is so key to the experience for everybody at Sporting Park.
We're talking with Cliff Illig of Sporting Kansas City and the Cerner Corporation, and I think there's kind of a thought out there, maybe media types like me or fans, they look at ownership of teams and they think, well, there's two kinds of owners, and we've seen them through the years, two types of owners, maybe even in Kansas City. I think of a guy like Ewing Kauffman who owned the Royals. He made all his money in pharmaceuticals, and he didn't look at baseball as something that I ever want to make a penny, and he wanted to beat the Yankees. And whatever that takes, let's go do that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, and you're probably not going to tell me about your books. You're a private company, so you can do whatever you want with sporting. The people around town believe, Cliff Illig and Neil Patterson made a lot of money at Cerner, and so they're really not looking at sporting as something that we really need to make money at. We want to win games. We want to provide a quality of life for people in Kansas City who choose to participate in this part of a quality of life, which is a sporting event or a team, a major league city, if you will, which I know you feel passionately about, that we need to be known as a major league city. That's really not the biggest issue. The bottom line isn't it. It's about winning and losing games and being proud of what is out there on the field. Is that the case? And if you run the team in that way, don't you have an advantage over other teams in your league that are not operating that way?
Well, maybe. I mean, to us, whether it's what we do at Cerner, what we do at Sporting, what we do, we have a little software venture now we're doing around sports and expanding innovations. All that stuff is pretty. It's all about results. Okay, now the yardstick you use to say, okay, what are great results, and as public
it's hard to find context that would make that overall quote I quote
sports ownership group and with Sporting Kansas City, we have our yardstick, and by far the most important one there is what we do on the field. And we don't want to win one or two championships.
You don't have to say I coach
win multiple championships.
Even adding different context that doesn't really make it.
But we're business people, so ultimately, we're not in anything that has to do with business where we don't intend to be successful as business people.
I don't know that would be.
I mean, how much money we make is really not the key, but we've got a team of people that manages very carefully to make sure that we're using our resources the best possible way that we can, that we're focused on the areas of our business that can get better, and that we keep trying to get better. Everybody looks at what we do at the stadium and with the fan experience, and they're very complimentary of it, which we appreciate. But I can tell you, we have an incredibly long list of things we still want to do, things we still want to improve. So it's all about results. Now, when you've got owners, we'll have when the All-Star game, we'll have most of the owners from
get away with it, and he can go on the recruiting trail and say, "This is how I feel," and your kid needs more to be
a bunch of them are coming to Kansas City to see what's going on here. The league is quite complimentary. Everybody that has heard about it and hasn't been here wants to come see what we're doing, and it's largely because of the results we generate. not just those on the field, but the way the building works, the way the fans engage.
Okay, I asked this question of Lamar Hunt many years ago, and I'll ask it of you. Would you rather lose, even if it was several $1 million, $5-10 million in an operating year with supporting Kansas City and win the MLS Cup? Or would you rather be a 500 team and make a $10 million profit?
I'd rather run the Cup. Ultimately in sports, that's what it's all about. It's what happens on.
So if it cost you money to do that, you'd be willing to do that?
I think that would be, in the short term, certainly, because in the long term, if you can't win, you're not going to attract the fans. And ultimately, as you and I have discussed, the fans are everything. And then every dollar that we make, whether it's from people in the stands or whether it's merchandise, people buying food and stuff at the stadium, whether they come out for one of the other events that we hosted at the stadium, our broadcast revenues as a league are all tied to how many fans we're able to compel to the value of what we're creating. So it's absolutely key that we win. That with winning, I think there's a lot of other successes that come along. If you don't make money in a given year, that'll take care of itself if we continue to win.
And it's the hardest thing because you can't always control it. I mean, there's injuries. There's so much. That's why we love sports. It's the greatest reality show anywhere because you just can't control it. I will let our audience know and let you know. Lamar Hunt wouldn't answer that question. I respect you for answering it. Truthfully, he said, "I don't see any reason that we can't make a profit." That's true, but we just had a discussion where he had pointed out that they have never had a year in their history in Kansas City where they didn't make a profit. And I thought it was an odd thing to say on a radio show because I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't know if your fans don't care whether you guys make a profit. They don't care. They want to have a great time at your games. They want you to win. That's what they want. That's all they care about, right? And you seem to know that. It's just a huge part.
We're right there in the front row trying to make sure that we can encourage as much of that as possible.
Tell me something about Peter Vermees that we don't know. This is a tough nut to crack. This guy is about as serious as anybody I've ever met. He is intense. I've only gotten to know him more over the last couple of years and how just downright serious he is. This is really a serious man, is he not?
He is, but Peter has a light side.
Yeah?
Very engaging, a lot of fun to be around.
I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean, I want my coach, my manager, technical director to be like that. I mean, it's very important to him.
Peter has very strong feelings is what it takes to be successful on the field in this league. And he has a what I would call a sporting approach to the technical side of the game. It involves a very high level of fitness. It involves a very forward style on the field. It involves not cutting the other team any slack, any place on the field. It involves minimizing, fastidious focus on detail, minimizing the mistakes when they happen, learning from them. What a lot of people don't know is we've got a fairly active sports analytics group inside Port Peter's organization. It sits there and most people think because you don't have a box score in soccer, there's no numbers that you can look at. Much to the contrary, because we have so much video. We can code that video, and we know an incredible amount of the statistical data that we have. Peter uses that data significantly to learn, not only about us, but about the other teams, and even to some extent the referees.
Tendencies.
It's all part of understanding the tendencies. His approach to training every day is equally detailed in its focus. He's got a great team of coaches with Gary, JP, and Z. Training crap, the guys that take care of the players are top notch. Chet North is the one guy that's been with the team since the very, very beginning. So it's a great group. Peter doesn't suffer inattention very well. So he demands everybody pay attention. And I think you can see it. I mean, when guys are injured, there's no guarantee that their spot will be there when they get back. So they're going to have to work back in the lineup. And if you have a couple of good games and there's somebody else coming from behind,
any news coming out from the Adidas Invitational last week in the Peach Jam?
Unfortunately, we have a very deep team. And guys that are very fast, very good on the ball. I really enjoyed the game the other night where at the end of the game we had not only Zeus and Jack Mara still in, Bieler had stepped out. We had Tim Hunter, Dom Dwyer,
see if I can.
all on the field field.
That's your favorite one, right?
And every one of those guys. I mean, they were chasing. You know, they were doing a lot of chasing, but it was fun to watch that much depth out there all at the same time. Peter demands a lot out of every one of them.
That's cool. Cliff Illig's our guest. Your thoughts on the All-Star Game coming up? This is a proud moment for the entire ownership group and the whole city. We're going to get a lot of exposure out of it. I guess you guys don't get nervous about these things anymore because the stadium's been open and everything's going to be great. But this is a big event. I mean, it's just got to feel really great to have this.
It's absolutely a big deal for Kansas City. Obviously, we hosted the Major League Baseball All-Star Game last year. That was a really big deal for the city. I think this will be a big deal. I think this will be the best All-Star Game that our league has ever hosted. You know, our format for All-Stars is very unique. We put the MLS All-Stars up against the best teams in the world, best club teams in the world.
Oh, so it's raining back there.
Since we went to that format, I think we played 9 times. You know, MLS has won 6 of those. The 2 they lost to Manchester United.
All right.
We're going to be hosting here in Kansas City. MLS All-Stars will be hosting Roma of Serie A, and
they fall short of naming me.
it's another one of the premier leagues in the world, one of the best teams from those leagues. So we're really looking forward to that. We're going to roll out the red carpet, not only for the folks from the international scene, but there'll be a bunch of league sponsors in town. Our board of governors will be here. You know, we're absolutely sold out. We're sold out very, very quickly. We've got a ton of events planned. A couple concerts down at Power and Light. Downtown should be hopping, and I think it'll even be more hopping in a concentrated way than it was for the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. And so there's going to be a lot going on. I think this will be certainly the best All-Star celebration that the league has ever hosted, and I think we'll put KC in a very good light. And I think that you know, we're going to be in a position where we really start to earn the label as the best American soccer city.
That's, you know what, that's something, and you're real close to there right now. I know you feel that way. This is Cliff Illig we're talking with about Sporting Kansas City and some of the enterprises they have in Kansas City. The Cerner Boys, as I refer to you, the Cerner Boys, those Cerner Boys are pretty committed to KC. It's a pretty good deal going on out there at Cerner, and it's only getting better, which is great. And it, you know, it leads us to another topic. You're enjoying sports ownership so much. And I know it's not a real comfortable position. You mentioned that Lamar Hunt contacted you and said, hey, what do you guys think about maybe taking a soccer club that needs to be locally owned, whatever. I assume that if, completely hypothetical, David Glass picked up the phone and said, you know, I was thinking about maybe getting done with baseball, you would be interested. You wouldn't say, hey, no thanks, I got to go. You'd be interested.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I'm a long-term Indiana's baseball fan. Pretty near the front and the center for games I have for 12, 13, 14 years. You know, I really, really love Royals baseball. And I think that you know, we admire, as a group, we admire what David Glass did for Kansas City by responding to the challenge that Ewing Kauffman's estate laid out for let's keep the team here. It was not an easy thing. It was not an easy thing for the estate to do. It was not an easy thing for David Glass to step up to do. If there's anything I've learned over the last 6 years, Kevin, it's running a professional sports franchise is one heck of a lot more complex than it may seem.
Yeah.
And you know, being at Cerner, being kind of the epicenter of healthcare and of technology, which in and of themselves each is very complex. You know, we're used to dealing with complexity. But I'll tell you, sports has tested our ability to be able to deal with the complex. So I know what they're up against. I've got a lot of respect for you know, the approach that they've taken. Obviously, I think they would say just as comfortably as any of us would say that it hasn't worked as well as they want to. And we all sit there and we watch them win 5 or 6 games in a row. And we feel so good about it, and then we watch them, you know, desperately not win in 4 or 5 games in a row, and it's difficult for us as fans.
Right.
And I think we are all fans of Kansas City sports. Well, but if David called, I think we'd listen. But we're, you know, I think we have too much respect for he and his family and what they're trying to do
to get involved
initiate that.
To initiate it. Okay, so there's no scenario would you ever contact them. So you know, we're kind of interested. We got a pretty good thing going over here. If you ever hey, just here's a little feeler. If you're ever thinking about it, we're here. Nothing like that.
Never had that conversation. Never got the call coming the other way. And we've got plenty to do winning a championship here in Kansas City with Sporting Kansas City.
I know, and the reason I ask is I knew Mr. K, and I remember very well what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep the team in Kansas City first, but he had a strong desire to have local ownership. And when this all went down, when he died and the estate held the team for a number of years, the group, and I think in some way you were involved. You mentioned to me earlier today that you did something at the time, but there was nobody really in Kansas City that was in a position at that point, to my knowledge, that wanted to buy it, could have just stepped up and done it. We now have people in Kansas City that have that ability, that are committed to the community. They live there. They have the financial ability to do it, and they love sports. I've often argued that maybe, I'm not an arts guy. I know there's a lot of people with a lot of money in Kansas City committed to the arts. I think that's great for us. I'm a sports guy. I've been sitting here hoping for 25 years covering sports in Kansas City that somebody who really loves sports is going to be a billionaire and be able to do this. Well, they're here. I mean, I can make an argument that what Mr. K would like would be the same thing that what Mr. Hunt would like. Would I be wrong if I made that argument?
No, you wouldn't be wrong. Ewing Kaufman was a great standard for any of us in Kansas City that have started a business and grown a business in our community. Jim Stowers as well. We're here at the American Century Championship. I'm on the board of the Stowers Institute. Both of those organizations were founded by Jim Stowers and Jim Virginia Stowers, and our city and all of us owe a debt of gratitude to their commitment and foresight in getting all that started. Kansas City is an entrepreneurial city. You got names like Hall and Hellsberg and Stowers and Kaufman. I mean, there's dozens of them. Neil and I are just kind of the guys that we're the most recent guys. And to be successful as a city, we've got to hope that there's going to be other centers come along. So I think that Ewing Kaufman was quite insightful in his approach to keeping baseball in Kansas City. Obviously, Lamar Hunt and his family have been totally dedicated to sports in Kansas City, even though they've lived someplace else. So I think that it's very logical for sports fans, for interested parties,
radio guys
to
connect the dots.
To connect the dots, absolutely connect the dots and have that.
One of the storylines
that makes sense, but
and
I don't want to make it personal, but here's the deal. I've not had Mr. Glass on this show since the stadium vote. Since he got the taxpayer money, he hasn't come on. Not once. Zero. I'm over. I don't think he's ever going to come on again. Came on a lot before that vote, trying to get that vote passed. People know that people are smart. They know this. I mean, you have to connect. There's something not quite right about it. And I think that's part of what you have tapped into with sports so well. People really see you as local owners, and this is our team with our people.
And maybe plan B or fall back. It's only going to work. Our team, our people, our fans, our city, everybody kind of putting their shoulder to it together. And clearly, in the case of the Royals, we don't see Mr. Glass all that much out in public. I mean, that's just not us. We're very willing to be out there. Cerner has 9,000 associates, 9,000 employees here in Kansas City, and we want it to be a great place for them to live. We want the next 9,000 to find it just to be as great a place to live. And it's not much of an imposition on us to be out there doing what we can to make Kansas City more livable, make it more attractive to not just young professionals, but everybody that has a love for a great community as well as sports.
Okay, we saw the video last night in the theater room of Jim Stowers Jr. and the story of dedicating $2 billion to the Stowers Institute and Cancer Research Center and things like that. I don't think burden is the right word. I'm trying to think of the word I guess responsibility. This is a tricky question to ask you. Is there a responsibility? Do you feel a responsibility, or what is it? Or is it a burden to have accumulated the wealth that you've accumulated? And I'm sure you never dreamed that it was going to go this way. I mean, you thought maybe your business would be successful, but I'm sure you never thought the numbers would be what they are. Does that create a burden or a responsibility? How do you?
I don't think burden would be a word I'd apply to it. Certainly responsibility.
to others? Is that what you feel? To charities, to community? What is the responsibility you feel when this happens in your life?
Well, I think in my case, and I'm not sure that there's very many people like Neil and I that will line up on this. To our way of thinking, one of our biggest obligations is to identify those things in the city that aren't working as well as they could.
Okay.
And then say, what is it we could do to help change that? Kansas City is one of the most giving cities in literally in the world. Philanthropy does extremely well here. We do our share of that. CERN, through its First Foundation, does its share of that. But there's so many other things that can be done to help Kansas City be better. Sports, yes, it happens to be one of those. But we've got a lot of work to do if we want to continue to grow economically as a city in terms of making Kansas City a great place for young people to live and work.
So you feel like with your where you are, your position is community.
Yes.
We want to make Kansas City the best possible place to live.
Absolutely.
That's because essentially all the people that work for you are Kansas Citians and have contributed to your own personal success.
Last one, we'll get you out of here on this Big Ten Media Days.
And Kansas City's just a great place to be.
Is it all about
we recruit center associates from all over the country. We're not successful in terms of compelling everybody that we make an offer to come to Kansas City. Once we get people here,
right. That's right.
Kansas City.
How many times a day do you check the Cerner stock price on your phone?
I hardly ever check.
Ever.
I may catch it. It comes up on my browser when I start it, and so I may just see it in passing.
Right.
But it's not the most important thing we're thinking about.
That's amazing. How about the Dow Jones average? You care?
I generally haven't had a sense for how the markets are doing.
Right. The numbers have to be staggering. I'm just sitting here thinking if you had one of those days, it was either really good or really bad. Do you remember a time when it first started to click? What was it like starting the company and watching it really grow and turn into something? Do you remember the days of it really bursting out? And
it was
wow.
a lot of work in the early years.
Right.
Neil and I have been partners. We've been around each other for nearly 40 years.
Wow.
And we've been business partners. Basically, we've been living out of the same pocketbook for 34 to 35 years.
Wow.
In the early years were a lot of work. There was absolutely no certainty to whether it was going to work or not. But fortunately, healthcare is anywhere between 8 and 18 or 19% of the GDPs of every country around the world. And so it's a big playground.
Yeah.
And IT is an important part of what's going to help every economy in the world deal with the pressing cost side of things, and at the same time being able to take care of their citizens. So we feel very good about where we are as a company. Our organization is very purposely focused. We're in the neighborhood of a $3 billion a year enterprise now. We've got about 13,000 associates worldwide, and we're not limited by the size of the marketplace.
There is the Zone Woods here on a Thursday
Our
edition
limits are
of
really
the
tied
show.
to what we can manage and what we can put together.
Growth is in the future. Cliff, great to see you. I really appreciate your time.
Kevin, good to see you.
Your story is so interesting. It's a great American story, first of all. Congratulations to you and Neil and all of your associates at Cerner for the success that you've had. We love watching the soccer team win and seeing a full sold-out stadium. It's awesome, and it's great to see you out here in Tahoe. I'm sorry that your hand is still kind of hurt and you can't play a little in the pro-am today. But
I'll go out and heckle Neil for
there you go. You'll be out of Lock Lloyd National pretty soon, I feel sure.
Appreciate the time, Kevin, and I would encourage anybody that's listening, if you ever get a chance to get to Tahoe this time of year, it is well worth it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
your time. Cliff Illig joining us on Between the Lines. That's great. That's great. I'm just so fascinated by your story. It's just
there's a lot of angles to it.
Yeah, I know, but it's just such a, anybody listening can tap into that and say, boy, I can dream of this, I can try it.
And that's one of the things that if you really want to dig into something, it's